name is Glenn Coggy. I run the Labor Front page, and I'm honored to have Jenna Roberson, candidate for Missouri's House District 63, on our Table Talk edition. And we're going to talk to her about her ideas and for her campaign, what she wants to do for the district and the state of Missouri, and where she thinks her campaign is headed. With that said, Jenna, I'm going to turn it over to you. How about an introduction? Tell us who you are and why you're running.
Hi, I'm Jenna Roberson. I'm running for state representative in HD 63, which is Wentzville, home of GM and UAW 2250. I'm happy to be here. I have decided to run because I am tired of seeing the direction that the state is going in an ultra conservative way. And when I say ultra conservative, I do mean socially, I do not mean constitutionally. Um, I have decided to throw my hat in the ring, knowing what I'm stepping into out here because I wholeheartedly believe in the issues that I'm running on, which is bodily autonomy, which are strong labor unions. Again, harking back to the fact that we have UAW and GM here, who is our number one employer, a fully funded public education, which the Wentzville School District is our number two employer. So that pretty much encapsulates the vast majority of my constituency out here. And I would love the opportunity to represent them.
Well, that'd be great. You froze up. I don't know
Oh,
if you'll be back. We're gonna keep on going because you still have audio going. And we were trying to log on to Facebook, and it's acting really weird tonight. I don't know. Maybe I didn't put enough quarters in the machine. We'll figure it out.
all right. You froze it first. Now you're moving. So
All
am
right.
I
Well,
am I moving? Am I
you're moving.
Mr.
Yes.
Roboto? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Mrs.
Perfect.
Roboto. Anyway, I got it. I caught it. Yeah, that's not bad. Anyway, yeah, you're running a tough district. You already know that. You've got a couple of candidates on the opposing side of the political spectrum, and you're running as a progressive candidate. And I don't want to say progressive liberal because they don't always coincide with each other. But in the conversations that we've had, you were staunchly in support of organized labor, staunchly against right to work. Um, Tell us a little bit more about your platform.
um, like I said, my platform is pretty simple. I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to make the proper decisions for themselves medically. I want to make sure that we are supporting our labor unions because they are the backbone of our middle class, particularly here in Wentzville. I am for a very strongly support, and I very much want to fully fund our public education. And as a progressive support our public education, I will go ahead and lay it out there that I think that we actually need to increase our funding for education. Our teacher pay is abysmal. We have uh, roughly almost a third of our districts reducing down to 4 days a week in their school year. That is not acceptable. And I think that some of these everyday issues that a lot of us will connect on across the political spectrum can be addressed by this. I do not desire to get into the weeds with people about cultural issues. I will. I don't want to. I want to go up to Jeff City. I would like to make it as easy as possible for people to learn and advocate for themselves and to empower people. In fact, I am an extremely progressive Democrat, but I'm also extremely small government. So if I think that we can solve our educational issues right here locally in our school district, I will push for everyone to do that. We need you to show up at our school board meetings. We need you to participate. We need you to show up to meet the teacher nights, to PTA meetings, to PTO meetings, whatever that looks like for you. I understand that the world is busy right now and it's not that easy. And sometimes it's easier to just fire off an email to an elected representative. Um, the unfortunate part is we need people to be more individually active in this democratic process, whether it be locally, statewide, federally. So my role is to actually try to stop some of the big things that are going through that maybe we already have legislation for, but that our current representatives are not telling us about. I don't think my current state representative or state senator has had one town hall that I can recall. They do not put things out there. So when they pass legislation and we have questions about it, and we contact them, they're extremely condescending about it and treat us like we're peasants. I don't think that's the way. I do believe in democracy. I will never tell someone that they're too stupid to know what they voted for. I will listen to the will of the people. Medicare expansion was passed very much by the state of Missouri, and we're still fighting to get that going. So when we have representatives that say they are for the people or small governments, but everything that they say or do is actually taking power away from the people, I'm not buying it. They're selling us a load of crap. And my response is no, no, no. You said this, you did this. So now we need some accountability. And that's what I'm saying. I'm tired of the nuance. Nuance is just sugar coated bullshit. So tell me what you want. Tell me what you did. Let's have a conversation and then we can move on from there. And whether that requires protesting or running for office, okay, then we know where to go. I'm just kind of tired of it. I'm just a regular everyday person. And I think most of the people out here are as well. We love our freedom. We love our country. Our bar is set too low for what we require of both of those right now. It's time to keep that bar up here and require the same amount from the people in Jeff City that they are telling us that we should be required to uphold as well.
You covered a lot of ground there, especially regarding education. No, it's
Yes.
great. It's great because I think I'm 100% in line with everything that you talked about. Um, One of the things I'd like to bring up, and it's a point that you made, but I'm kind of going to kind of drive it home. Our current politicians in Jeff City think that we are stupid. They really do. And the reason I'm saying that is, as you well know, Missouri voters went to the polls and we defeated right to work in 2018. They called it Prop A. It was signed into law by the governor. We gathered enough signatures to get it on the ballot. And the people of Missouri went out and about 60 to 62% statewide voted against it. We voted for Medicaid expansion. We voted for medical marijuana. We voted for clean Missouri. And the things that the Republicans who control our House and Senate didn't like, they just overrode the will of the people. And I happened to be at a breakfast one morning and I ran into a Republican state rep and we had a conversation. And I said, it's, and this was right after the election and right after we defeated Prop A. And I said, well, congratulations on winning. Obviously, it was the will of the people that you serve another term in the Missouri House of Representatives. So, good luck to you. And he said, oh, thank you. We shook hands. And I said, and also it was the will of the people that you oppose right to work because over 60% of your district voted against right to work. So since you're willing to honor the will of the people and serve them, I'm sure you'll be willing to honor the will of the people and not support right to work anymore. And he looked at me and he said, well, the people voted for me knowing what my positions are on right to work. And I really don't think that they understood what they were voting on when they voted against Prop A. That is what they think of the voters of Missouri. Yet the voters of Missouri keep electing these yahoos and putting them into office where they can turn right around and sponsor that legislation again. And then lastly, and I'm going to turn it over to you to make it even worse, they are attempting, if they haven't done it yet, to alter the process to get things on the ballot so that it's much harder. And it was already very hard to do. That is what they think of the people. You don't like what we're saying, we'll make it harder for you to say it.
That's exactly 100% correct. They are really all in on this representative republic ideology of this. And while I love the idea of it, I feel like they've, for lack of a better term, they've bastardized it. They have taken their elections and saying, well, I ran on this platform and they're electing me to be their voice. And if they agree with me, then just whatever I say goes. And to a certain extent, I think that was the original intent of what our democracy, our choice of democracy was supposed to be. Unfortunately, we've progressed to the point where they're not listening to us. And when they don't like what we have to say, they try to overturn it. We saw it with right to work. In fact, the current state rep who got districted out right now, Representative Richard West, who represents Wentzville, again, GM is our number one employer, co-sponsored right to work legislation this past session. So I would venture to say that he was not actually representing the people. What I have also noticed is that during this season, you'll see that all the Republican candidates, current or new to this process, are all signing what I call a fealty pledge. They have to sign this little thing saying they're going to go along with the state party. So what I see is I don't care what my constituents want. I don't necessarily even care what I want. I'm going to go with what the party says. I'm not about that. If the Democrat Party asked me to sign a fealty pledge, I tell them no and to go kick rocks because that's not my obligation. I love the Democrat platform, and a lot of us have different ideologies on how we achieve the goals of that. But none of those and anyone I've spoken to has included a oath of loyalty to the party. And on one hand, it's detrimental. On the other hand, it seems to be working for them. So we have to really figure out how to crack that formula to get in there. Because when I'm talking to people, as you said earlier, we vote progressive on issues. We don't want right to work. We approved Medicaid expansion, which they are still fighting. We're still having trouble getting it funded. They took the opportunity last summer to try to include anti birth control language in it. They worked at defunding Planned Parenthood when they don't understand that the abortion services they provide are only one aspect. They provide STD testing, they provide pregnancy tests, wellness exams, breast exams. They even do, um, excuse me, they even do vasectomies. There's other things that they do, but what it is they're so singular in their mission and their focus that they can't see out, they can't take the blinders off. And that has been my issue with the Republican Party with a lot of the legislation they passed. It's very one note, it's very blanketed, and it doesn't take into consideration all the variants that we need when it comes to considering labor issues, when it comes to LGBTQ issues, when it comes to women's issues. They just make this blanket thing and say, hey, this should cover it all. And what I'm saying is, I think that people are worth the individual effort. I think groups are worth the individual effort. I think our legislation should take all of this into consideration. And if you're not willing to do that work because it's hard, I completely understand that. But you need to step aside and let those of us that are willing to consider all these details do so. We won't get bogged down in them. We're going to meet you where you're at. You have a good idea for legislation. Let's work together. I'm here to tell you about the details you didn't think of, and I would appreciate if you did the same thing to me for things I'm trying to pass. If there are things that has to do with school districts that I'm not thinking of that you do, let's talk. Let's figure this out. Let's talk to our parents. Let's talk to each other and say, hey, let's pass this. But what's good for in St. Charles school districts may not be what's good for St. Louis school districts, which may not be good for Kansas City or Springfield or Nottoway County. It is not blanketed solutions to everything. And I think it's dismissive of all of our taxpayers who are paying the same tax rate to just say, hey, we're going to all judge you by this one area. We're going to do everything according to St. Charles. We're going to do everything according to St. Louis. And I don't think it's worth it. I think you are worth that. I think I'm worth that. I think everyone listening to this is worth that. I think we need to take the time to do this instead of relying on ALEC or phantom issues such as CRT. It's just it's ridiculous, and it's actually quite insulting. I think highly of our citizens, and I think our elected representatives do not. And I think we deserve more, and we should require more.
I couldn't agree with you more. Everything that you said, I stand 100% behind. And one of the things that you brought up about ALEC, American Council for, what is it, the American
American
Legislative
Legislative Exchange. Yes.
Yeah. ALEC is nothing but a union of corporations. They pool their money.
The irony.
Now hear me out. Hear me out. They pool their money for a collective voice to support legislation that supports their entity or business, whatever they've got. That is not a whole lot different than what we in organized labor do. The same with the Chamber of Commerce. That's what they are. They are corporate unions, associations, whatever you want to call it. One of the things that I notice, and I know that you do as well, they will use these wedge issues like CRT or the pro-life movement and things like that. That's the smoke in the mirrors. And behind that smoke and mirrors, they're writing legislation that is devastating to organized labor. It's devastating to the working families, not just the unions, but the working families here in the state of Missouri and nationwide, quite frankly. And what they're doing is they're holding up the smoke in the mirrors and they're saying, ooh, CRT, boogeyman, ban these books, we're pro-life. And then they support legislation that is absolutely not pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have to break through. I had a young man named Joshua Shipp on. He's running for United States Senate, and he is a dynamic young man. I really got a kick out of talking to him, and I get the same energy from you. And one of the things that you all are bringing is the social media, the ability to use social media to get the message out and reach a whole new demographic that people knocking doors aren't going to be able to get, people phone banking aren't going to get. And it's one way to counter the big money influx that some of these big politicians get. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Oh gosh, I have a ton of that. Yes, social media is great. It has really helped get the message out there. It's helped with fundraising. It has helped with finding people in this area that have long felt compartmentalized or alienated because St. Charles is a deep red district. What I have learned is it in fact is not. We just have to find each other and empower each other. I have spoken with people that we're still working on that I have earned their vote. Unfortunately, they do not feel safe putting, say, a yard sign in their yard because they have neighbors around them that have projected a feeling that isn't safe for them to do so. There's no legitimate, actual, legitimate political discord allowed sometimes. So, you know what? I've got their vote. It didn't cost me one penny other than a phone call or a door knock, and I will take that. So, as we're leading into this week up to the primaries, my mailbox has been just infiltrated every day with all these mailers. And every time I look at them, I look at the label, none of which are union made. And then the second thing is I know the approximate cost for this area, what it costs to send these mailers and how much they're spending every time. And all I keep thinking about is for as much as they complain about gas prices and the cost of formula and food and inflation, they sure as heck have enough money to donate or to spend on something that's going to end up in a landfill that's hugely wasteful. It's again, it's a little frustrating, not bitter, little salty that they have all of these backings, particularly by dark money, by the Koch brothers, by Americans for Prosperity, all of these PACs that you hear of. Anytime you get a mailer, look at who it's paid for if it's not by the candidate. Go to Open Secrets, go to MEC, go to FEC, and see who these people donate to. You will see the pattern. And I'm kind of tired of it. For me, as a Democrat in St. Charles, I can spend money on mailers, and I'm not saying it would be poorly spent, but I think what all of us are under the impression of and what our experience is, we're going to win this in the streets. And by what I mean in the streets is by knocking doors. We've got to put ourselves out there. We don't have the money or the backing or anyone saying, hey, I'm going to vote for you just because you have a D behind your name like the other side does. And our job is to break through all of that and to talk to people and take the verbal lashing and take the public crucifixion of this. Like we know what we're doing when we decide to run, we're putting a target on our back. It's not easy. Some of us realize maybe this isn't our cycle, but it's to move the needle forward. And if I do nothing else out of this, it's to put a beacon out there that says, hey, listen, you're not alone. And this may not be our cycle. I hope that it is. We need all of you. I think it's possible, but we need your help. We've saw it in the school board elections out here. We're going to see it with this cycle with our state reps. We're going to see it. So we just need people to believe in us as much as we believe in ourselves, as much as we believe in you, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
just
No,
take a chance
absolutely.
on us. Yeah.
Absolutely. It does make sense, but it starts with creating a dialogue, and you have created dialogue, whether it's through the social media or knocking on the door. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
dialogue that needs to happen because I believe that most people, a large majority that you talk to, you're going to find a lot more common ground with than things you disagree on. And that's what we have to build on is the common ground. Everybody wants a good education for the children.
Yep.
Everybody wants good paying jobs. Everybody wants safe streets. I'm not saying anything that I don't know anybody that would say, oh, no, I don't want the kids to have good education.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have to do is realize that that all has to be paid for. And we have to find ways to pay for it without having a negative impact on the most needy and those that need it the most. And the schools right now, our teachers' pay ranks at one of the worst in the entire country. You get what you pay for. I mean, read where school districts are being cut back to 4 days a week because they can't afford to run five. What kind of impact does that have on the parents who could barely afford the babysitter for after school? Now they've got to come up with another full day's babysitter.
Yeah.
So, I
This
mean,
is an economic problem for everybody. I mean, not only is education the most powerful gift that we can give our next generation of people, Um, from what I understand, talking to Jess Piper and seeing things she's posted and other people in rural Missouri, they're actively sending out job ads like, hey, you only go to school 4 days a week. So on this day of the week, can you show up to the local farms or to help provide labor? So am I thinking that's necessarily them causing the school shortage? Not necessarily, but do I think they're opportunistic? Yes. It's going to happen. Um, Again, education is the number one thing we can give our next generation of children. They need it, and I will fully support that across the board, unequivocally, excuse me, and unapologetically. We need this. Again, we need our strong workforce. We can only get that workforce through education, and through that education, I fully support and endorse an apprenticeship program. I know we're working on that through the federal program. Why put these children who apparently are already limited to 4 days a week to a lifelong debt, to a lifelong student debt for a job that they're going to go a couple $100,000 in debt for to start off making what, 35, 40 grand a year? Forever. It's going to take them 10 or 20 years to pay it off. They can't declare bankruptcy. They can't get out of it. It will always be there. And even if they make the minimum payments, the principal just keeps accruing because the interest rates on them are so terrible. So we need people to go to trade schools, but we don't need to make that avenue possible by shortchanging them on their K through 12 education. They need geometry, especially if they're going into trades. For electricians, for plumbers, we need to understand angles. We need to understand grading and how that affects all of it. It's so interconnected, and trying to get people to see that without completely making them feel like you're being challenging or condescending has proven difficult, but I think that it's possible. If we talk to people, we have more in common than we don't, aside, like you said, from the wedge issues.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. One of the things that you brought up a little bit ago was in parental involvement, coming to the school board meetings, city council meetings. The apathy is really hurting. And that's where people, you made 2 points. First of all, the people need to be showing up at the meetings, but you also are talking about accountability. And showing up at the meetings is where you can hold them accountable. It's where you can talk about the school budgets and the lack for whatever program or the investment into a program you may not want. That is where the people can make a difference. That's where their voices are heard. We need to find ways to get the people, encourage them to show up at these meetings. They're not just these old humdrum, whatever term you want to use, boring meetings. That's where the stuff happens. And that's where parents can make their voices heard. And that's what we need to do, is find ways to encourage the people to show up and get them to show up. If they don't like what's going on in their city council, sitting back and writing something on social media or in the newspaper is not going to fix it. What fixes it is showing up at that city council meeting, getting on the agenda, going to the microphone and calling them out. That's what will make the change happen. And it's an hour or 2 hours a month out of their time, and that's a small investment to correct an issue that they may feel is so important. So
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. You haven't said anything that I don't agree with, which is
Speaking
not.
of meetings, if I may interject, when it comes to school board meetings and our county council meetings, particularly in Wentzville and St. Charles altogether, I think part of the issue, and I have heard this specifically myself, that there would be more people that would love to be involved and come, except that there has become this culture of trying to think of the right way to say this. The environment in these board meetings are not welcoming. There are some pretty assertive parent groups or non-parent groups that are coming to these meetings that basically are just there to stir shit up. They are not conducive to the agenda items. It's really just a thing for them to film themselves. They set up these camera pods to film themselves to create this content for Reddit or Bumble or all these social media things that I don't understand or use. But it's all propaganda. So we have people that would love to come to school board meetings, but they feel like it's performative, it's a circus. We're not addressing issues that are really important, and they are 100% correct. So when some of us go to meetings, such as school board meetings, we tend to try to bring speeches from teachers or local people that do not feel comfortable coming and speaking on their behalf. And that's a shame. We need to end that. We will never get more people participating unless they feel welcome there. And our current boards and our current political environment has really gotten divisive to the point where it's like you have to be all the way over here, all the way over here, and you need, or you don't speak. And I don't feel like that's been the way. In Winsville, we had a lot of book banning issues. We've had masking issues. And those of us that felt that the issue was important enough, we've shown up and we've spoken. But it took a lot of guts. It really did. People have been getting emails. We've had school board members who have had people driving on their streets taking pictures of their children and sending them threatening messages, and it's across the political spectrum, so to speak, of our school board members. I'm not on board with any of that. You do not threaten school board members. You do not threaten county council members. You've got a problem with them, you go to the county council meeting. You want to protest them, we protest them, but you do not threaten people. That is not what this country is built on. That is not what we do, and I will not stand for it. I am more than happy to stand next to anybody that wants to make a speech. I'm more than happy to stand next to anybody who wants to protest. Violence is not something I condone, and I never will. And I'm tired of the people on the right side saying that that's what we do, that we're Antifa, that we're sex predators, that we're pedophiles, that we're groomers. I'm tired of all that. For people who couldn't take 5 seconds of criticism being called a racist, they sure like to throw terms at us. I'm done with it. I'm not that kind of Democrat. I'm willing to meet you where you're at. I want to build bridges, but I also carry a pack of matches in case I need to burn it down. So just know that I match energies. I'm where you're at. I want to work with you, but I'm not going to tolerate your bullshit. So as long as we understand that, we're going to get along fine because I want to make this work. But I'm done with all the craziness. Done. We're done. Okay. It's time to move on and be adults and send adults to Jeff City and stop preying on the inadequacies, the insecurities of these parents. Let's help them out. They've got legitimate questions. A lot of them do. I'm okay with that. Let's work together instead of making this a right or left issue. It's not a right or left issue. This is a person issue. This is a school issue. This is a county council issue. Let's address it that way and build support amongst each other. Because the biggest fear they have is that we figure out how to work together and overpower them. And we need to remember that.
You're absolutely right. It's like the bullies on the playground. Everybody else is afraid to go on the playground because the bullies are sitting around the monkey bars or the swings, and they intimidate anybody from coming over and getting in their area. And it's ridiculous. And typically what you run into is they really don't care about being on the playground. It's just something that they can try to use to show their bigness, or lack thereof. Anyway, and it's very frustrating because that is one of the things that it may be prohibiting people from coming up and making actually very good points. And an email does not have the same effect. Somebody reading an email at a board meeting is not the same as somebody coming to the microphone and saying what's in the email to your face, because then you have to look them in the eye and tell them exactly what your position is. And you don't have time to write and rewrite that email numerous times. You're on the spot and you have to respond accordingly. And that's really the way it should be. That's how people are held accountable. And these people that are setting up and running interference for the establishment are the ones that are creating so much havoc and continuing the divide that we have. So I'm with you 100%. One thing that I like to do is towards the end of an interview is I like to play Queen for a Day, where you are to put your tiara on or your crown or whatever the heck they call them. And you get to make the rules for the 63rd district. Whatever rules you make are going to become law. And what would be a couple of the rules you would make that would benefit the citizens of the 63rd?
Oh gosh, there's so many I would make, but I feel like this really comes down to about three of them. My third one's going to be a little humorous. My first one is we support our labor unions. Again, Winsville, GM, number one employer. We support our people. Number two, fully support education. I'm tired of the school privatization people coming in. Queen for a Day, I would probably put a zipper on their mouth. Like, no. If you've got a flat tire, I understand we might have some issues with our public education system, but if you have a flat tire, you fix the flat tire. You don't buy a whole new car. I'm sorry. I don't have that kind of privilege. I have to fix the vehicle that I have, and I'm willing to do the work to do it. The third one, I would make it mandatory that everybody takes a driver's education class, specifically focusing on how to use a circle. Just I've got a little dark humor, so I always have to throw something in there. And if you live in Winslow, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's been interesting. So strong schools, bodily autonomy, strong labor, learn how to drive in a circle, learn how to drive just in general. And that pretty much sums it up. And I want you to be left alone. I want to be left alone. We all want to be left alone. So let's do what we need to do to educate people, let people live the lives they want to live, let them build their family they want to build it, and go on and be happy. Life is short. We've got one shot at this, unless maybe you believe in reincarnation. Let's make it worth it. Do what you need to do to make this world the way you want it to be, and then we'll be happy. That's simple.
That sounds simple enough. Do you have a website that people can go to?
I do. I have a website that thankfully was given to me by the HDCC. So the website is upballot, which is UPBALLOT.com/ Jenna, JENNA dash Roberson, ROBERSON. And that will take you right to my website. My Twitter and my Facebook are both at Jenna4, spelled out FORMO, Missouri. And you can find me at either one of those.
What about TikTok?
I am working on TikTok. Unfortunately, I am not as naturally gifted at that as my friend Jess is. So yeah, I'm working on that. I have volunteers working on things like that. We filmed quite a few of them. They're editing them for me. We're going to get them out shortly. So working on increasing that presence.
That's awesome. You've been a great interview. You're energetic. You're knowledgeable. You're what Missouri needs. You're what the 63rd district needs. I hope that anybody that hears this recognizes the good that you're going to be able to do for your district when you go to Jeff City. And from my standpoint, as an old labor leader, I wish we had 100 of you going to Jeff City, because the protection would be there to protect Missouri's workers, not just those of us that carry our union cards, but those that don't as well. And we need it, and they need it. They need it more than we do. So thank you for all the energy that you bring. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I wish you all the luck in the 63rd district. I will get this edited and get it out to you. Jenna Roberson, thank you so much. I said it wrong at the opening, and I get a text
That's
message.
okay.
Hey pal, say it right, will you?
my whole life, it's okay. I'm used to correcting. As long as people take it, we're okay. But yes,
Yeah,
we're
with
good.
my
Thank
last
you so
name,
much for those kind words.
my last name is always mispronounced as well, but even by me sometimes. So what the hell? Jenna, thanks for coming
I got
on.
it.
Have a good night and good
You
luck
too.
out on the campaign trail, and be safe.
Thank you. Vote blue on Tuesday, everybody,
There you
please.
go.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.